In the most simplest terms, what is Scrum?
In the simplest terms, Scrum is a way in which projects are delivered in smaller pieces.
So let's talk about the money, because everybody, I'm sure, wants to know about the money.
I obtained my very first certification. I got a CSM. That CSM certification cost me $2,000. But that CSM $2,000 course thrusted me into a $100,000 position plus. So I think my return on investment was pretty good. I haven't done the math and the percentages, but I think that was a pretty good percentage.
Welcome to another edition of the Kenn Rashad Show. This is a very special edition of the Kenn Rashad Show because she is no stranger to the show. As a matter of fact, she was on episode 1. And so as we move forward with additional episodes, you guys already know about my unfortunate situation in Atlanta. But now we're back to the reason why this actual podcast exists, and that is to talk about and profile up-and-coming entrepreneurs. And this particular person is no exception. She is my significant other. She is the love of my life. She is my wife, Dionne Rashad, of the CEO of KDMJ Solutions.
Hello, hello.
Hello. To this day, you still have me fumbling and stumbling over my words.
My
Welcome,
God.
lady, to the show. I wanted to bring you on because despite the fact that I think I know about this particular profession, as long as you've been in it, I must admit, I still don't know a whole lot about it, despite the many times you've tried to explain it to me. And that is this world of Scrum and Agile and all this other stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, if I don't know what it is, then surely there are a ton of other people who don't know what it is either. So if you don't mind, sweetheart, in the most simplest terms, what is Scrum?
In the simplest terms, Scrum is a way in which projects are delivered in smaller pieces. You'll hear people call it smaller increments. What normally happens is that rather than taking a project that could easily go 6 months to a year and deliver it at the end of that year or 6 months, with Scrum, we're taking these projects and delivering them over like a 2 to 4 week period. During that 2 to 4 week period, it's not the entire project that's being delivered. We're delivering it in pieces. And what that means is that now the business and everyone involved has an opportunity to look at the portion of the work that's been done and say, hey, we can use it, or hey, that's what we want, or you know what? I don't think that was a good idea. Let's go a totally different direction.
Okay.
So just in a nutshell, it's just delivering it in smaller pieces as it relates to the project, but it gives flexibility to make changes.
Flexibility to make changes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Scrum. And then yet there are often times when I hear you talking to other people, or if you're on calls, I hear this term Agile. So explain to me quickly, if you don't mind, in the simplest form, because I'm a very simple person. What is Agile? And how does it fit into all of this?
Okay. So look at Agile as the big picture. I always like to refer to Agile as an umbrella. And then you have Scrum and Kanban underneath that umbrella. Does that paint a good picture for you?
Yeah. So
Okay.
you're saying that Scrum is the umbrella?
I'm saying Agile is the umbrella.
And Scrum
And I'm saying
fits
Scrum is
underneath.
underneath that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So when you look at it from a visual perspective, Agile is the overarching piece, is the big picture, and Scrum is underneath that, as well as Kanban. Those are just different frameworks and different ways in which projects are ran.
Okay. So as it relates to organizations and teams, what problems does Scrum solve?
So the problem that Scrum solves for a business is that now you're not delivering a product at the end that the business may not want. Scrum allows for those fixes that I talked about earlier to be performed before the overall project is delivered. In my experience, what has happened is we get this project, we roll out this project. Project's not delivered for a year and a half. And lo and behold, sometimes when we get to the end of that time period, either the business don't even need it anymore, or technology has changed so much until what we're trying to deliver could potentially be obsolete. So by an organization integrating Agile into the way in which they work, now they're being able to get functionality and products that are available to them when they need it, how they need it, and why they need it.
Okay. So that explains that. All right. So what is the role of the Scrum Master? Or what is the role of, I mean, how is that important? Because I hear Scrum, and then there's Agile, and then we hear this term of someone being known as a Scrum Master. So what or why is the role of a Scrum Master important?
A Scrum Master role is important for a couple of reasons. First of all, a Scrum Master is a servant leader, which means they are there to, I hate to say serve the team, but they really serve the team, because a Scrum Master comes in and they protect the team from any additional work that's being requested that the team can't take on. They are there to help the team remove any impediments that may occur. Impediments are just problems that's stopping them from doing the work. So, the Scrum Master jumps in and helps to resolve any of those problems. The Scrum Master is there to help coach and guide the team to become self-organizing teams, or teach the team about the framework if they're not aware.
Okay. So that's the role. So explain to me, well, let's go deeper into the role of a Scrum Master. Okay. So for instance, let's just say on a typical day, what exactly does a Scrum Master do on a day-to-day basis?
I'm going to address the day-to-day basis, but then I'm also going to address the sprint, because
the sprint.
The sprint.
Okay. What is a sprint?
I'll get into that.
Okay. All right.
So on a day-to-day basis, the Scrum Master will have a ceremony called a daily stand-up. A ceremony is just a meeting. It's 15 minutes. And a daily stand-up is exactly what it says it is. It's a daily meeting where the team comes together and they normally stand up. And what happens is each person that's on that team will go around and say what they did yesterday, what they're going to do today, and if they have any impediments. The importance of that meeting is that on a daily basis, now the team can understand what each other's working on. The Scrum Master can understand and look at the team's work to ensure that they're going to complete the work within that sprint. And then if there's any impediments, the team has an opportunity to call out those impediments for the Scrum Master. Now, a sprint is a set of time period in which the team is working. A sprint can be anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. It just depends on what the organization decides as to what that sprint will look like. In my experience, it always has been 2 weeks.
Okay. So, so that's the role. Now, it sounds like,
Hold on. That's a daily thing. I'm not finished.
That's a daily thing.
That's a daily thing.
Okay.
Now, in the sprint, in the course of this 2 weeks, the Scrum Master is reaching out to everybody on the team, seeing if there's still any impediments that may have come up outside of the daily stand-up. They're coaching and developing the team to become more self-organizing. And then they also hold 3 more ceremonies during that 2-week sprint. They hold the sprint planning sessions, the retrospectives, and the sprint review. The sprint planning is where the Scrum Master brings the entire team together along with the product owner. The product owner tells us exactly what we're going to work on for that sprint. The team determines, how does that look? How am I coding this? How am I testing this? Do I understand all the work that's being requested during this time period? And then on top of that, the Scrum Master is making sure that the team is okay with the goals that are being set and the amount of work, and gaining a commitment from the team to ensure, okay, you can do this amount of work during this sprint. Perfect. So that's the sprint planning. The retrospective, I think, was one of my favorite ceremonies to hold. And The retrospective is where the team is at the end of the sprint and they're looking back to say, what could we have done better? How can we improve going forward? And what did we do well? Now, one of the things in which I would add to my team that's not a formal way of doing it, I would add kudos. Simply because in a 2-week time period, if someone's really helped you out or someone's been able to go above and beyond what their normal responsibilities were, I wanted to take a moment to thank that person, to issue kudos to those folks. So in the retrospective, we would have it at the end. And like I said, it just gave the team an opportunity to know what we needed to improve on. And I saw growth come out of those retrospectives. Okay. Now, the last responsibility of the Scrum Master is the sprint review. The sprint review is where now the team is at the end of the sprint. We get a chance to show the stakeholders, the business. We get to show everyone who attends this demo what we've worked on and what it looks like. I like this meeting also because what happens is your developer is showing what he or she has coded. Your tester is showing the various scenarios that they've tested. And now your business partners as well as your stakeholders are giving you thumbs up or thumbs down. And now you know what your direction could potentially be for the next sprint. So that's kind of a day in the life of a Scrum Master, but it's really not day to day. It's over 2 weeks.
Okay. So this now, and if I'm off base by saying this, because based upon what you're telling me, and based upon what limited experience I had in the corporate world, I've been in the corporate world for a very long time. But based upon what I think I know, it almost sounds as if you're talking about a project manager. And I'm guessing that's not quite the same. So how is a Scrum Master different from a project manager? In 1949, Paul Tank Younger, a fullback from Grambling, signed with the Los Angeles Rams as an undrafted free agent. He went on to become a 4-time Pro Bowler and later became the NFL's first black front office executive. But the way he got there says even more. When the Rams sent a scout to sign him, the offer was for $4,000. Not because he wasn't worth more, but because they thought paying the minimum would improve his odds of just making the team. But that's when Grambling coach Eddie Robinson stepped in. He pushed back by saying, look, give him $6,000. And if he isn't good enough, cut him. That single moment mattered. It wasn't just about Tank Younger. It was about HBCUs demanding respect at a time when the rest of college football was still wrestling with integration. Stories like this are why I wrote the book, HBCU Sports 101, a guide to understanding black college athletics. Because it's bigger than just stats and scores. It's about culture, legacy, and the people who changed the game. You can get your copy now at KennRashad.com, signed bundles, the ebook, and more, or pick it up on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other places where books are sold. Just click the link in the description below. Now back to the show. Or are they one and the same, or is there some similarities? Because what you just indicated seems a lot of the responsibilities of a project manager. Am I wrong for bringing that up? Or, I mean, what?
Being a Scrum Master and being a project manager, there are similarities in the position, but there are huge differences.
Okay.
From a traditional project manager perspective, you have so many to-dos on the list. And what I mean by to-dos is that there are normally update blockers that need to go out depending upon your organization, weekly or bi-weekly. There's normally a tracker, just showing the performance of where we are, what we've got left, what percentage complete we are. And here I'm just talking about traditional project management. Normally as a project manager, when you would have various meetings, you'd send out meeting notes and it was so much involved in being a project manager to where when I converted to a Scrum Master, I found it to be a lot easier. Because as a Scrum Master, we would handle the various ceremonies that I spoke of before. But then on top of that, all of your work pretty much was either located in Jira or a system similar to that, to where you could actually see a board where you can look and see exactly where the team is. Inside Jira, you could also be able to pull the metrics to see if the team is underperforming or overperforming. So there are similarities in a project manager and a scrum master. However, I just think the to-do list for the scrum master is less than a traditional project manager.
Okay, so that's the difference between a Scrum Master and a project manager.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, what are some common misconceptions about what a a Scrum Master's role is? Because
Okay.
I still think that people confuse it with project management, but I'm guessing that there are still probably some misconceptions about Scrum being a Scrum Master that people may still not completely understand or may have confused.
Yeah, I mean, the primary misconception that I've seen and that I've consistently heard is that what do scrum masters do? Because a lot of the work in which they're doing is behind the scenes outside of the ceremonies. Like the constant follow up or rolling up their sleeves to remove these impediments. Unless the impediment is massively escalated, a lot of what the work of a scrum master is done is behind the scenes. So when your work is done behind the scene, the assumption is like you're not doing anything when in actuality, they're doing quite a bit of work.
So let me ask you this: with that being said, what qualities or skills make for an effective Scrum Master?
The three top skills that I can think of immediately are going to be facilitation, because you're going to have to, as a scrum master, facilitate a variety of ceremonies. So you have to be able to facilitate. You have to be able to lead while being on the call. You have to be able to police whatever is transpiring on the call as well. My next skill that I think of would be communication. So whether you're having to work to resolve whatever impediment, clear communication is going to be required in order to resolve whatever impediment that you have. Sometimes you're able to give that communication verbally, and other times it may be via email. So making sure that you have clear, concise communication is going to be a skill that's needed by a Scrum Master. And then the last one would be problem solving. Sometimes you have to jump in again for these impediments and resolve problems. You have to get creative. It's not always just a cut and dry answer. A lot of times you have to be creative in that. So that's where your problem solving skills. So those would be my top three: communication, facilitation, and problem solving.
Okay. So let's talk about someone who may be watching this and they say, you know what, based upon what I've heard so far, I think I might be interested, but it sounds kind of technical. So let me ask you now, do you require or does a Scrum Master require any sort of technical background?
My immediate answer is no. You don't have to be technical. You're not expected to write a line of code, nor are you expected to test. As a Scrum Master, there were times in which they would ask me sometimes, Dionne, do you want to code? Do you want to test? No, unless you want the lights to go out. And they would say, well, this has nothing to do with the lights going out. I said, I know. That's why you don't want me coding, and that's why you don't want me testing, because that would be your result. But
But I mean, it doesn't hurt to have it, right?
it does not hurt to have it. And what I was actually just getting ready to say is it's to your advantage if you do, simply because you would know how long it could potentially take to code and to produce a line of code or to test various scenarios. It's to your advantage if you do, but the caveat to that is this: once you get in as a scrum master and you are not technical, and you are there day in, day out, you're working with your developer, you're working with your tester, you are going to identify which tester is your best tester, and you're going to realize which developer is your best developer. From there, you're going to get an understanding of how long it should take to code, how long it should take to test, and you don't have to be technical to be able to do that.
Okay. So, person may be looking at this, person who is in a corporate field and maybe wanting to consider going to that next level.
Mhm.
And so far, they like everything that they've heard so far in terms of what you have said the role of a Scrum Master is, what Scrum being what it is, and so forth. Okay. So for that person who wants to get into the field, what is the very first thing that they need to do? What is the very first step to becoming a Scrum Master or to get into the world of Scrum?
If I'm an individual looking to become a Scrum Master, the first thing that I'm going to do is identify if my organization hires Scrum Masters, because that would be a position that I would be able to interview for and transfer within the organization with. Or am I looking outside the organization for a position? That would be what I would do. Because you need to understand, first of all, am I going to be able to do it with the organization I'm with, or am I going to have to go outside of the organization and then make the decision, are you okay either direction?
Okay. So what about, say, personality traits or work styles? I mean, do you have to have any of these things to, to be a good fit? I mean, just because a person may want to be a Scrum Master doesn't necessarily mean they should become one.
Well, I
So,
mean, you have to be somewhat of a people person, right? In
okay,
order to be a Scrum Master, because you're dealing with
that
people.
probably wouldn't be me though, right?
I'm going to say it was me. Because as a Scrum Master, you run across a variety of personality types. So, you're going to have a skill set to where you may be able to deal with Grumpy John and Perky Patty. So you have to be able to kind of switch on which type of person you're dealing with and be able to get those results. So I'm definitely going to say that you need to be flexible, and be able to be open with the various types of people that you're going to work with.
Okay. So it helps to be a people person.
It does.
And it helps to have a certain level of patience to deal with people who aren't necessarily people.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to have a level of patience with it because you're helping people, right? That's
So,
where the servant leadership piece of this comes in.
okay. So is there some sort of a learning curve? So let's just say a person, they do everything that they're supposed to do and they finally get into the role. Is there an actual learning curve given all of the certifications and training? And we'll get into that later. But is there an actual learning curve to this process?
So the learning curve is going to depend upon the type of team that you have. If you are new to being a Scrum Master and you have a mature team, your learning curve is going to go a lot faster. The reason being is that a mature Agile team functions whether you're there or not. They know the framework in and out. So if you're there, great. If you're not there, great, because they're still able to operate. The learning curve grows and is going to be a little longer for a new Scrum Master and a new Scrum team, because now all of you are learning how to implement this framework together.
Okay. So I understand that they're obviously given careers nowadays. I'm guessing there's some sort of a certification or a training process that goes along with this, right? So
Exactly.
if a person wants to be a Scrum Master, what is the process? What does that look like? Certification? What is the training process?
I'm going to go to my glasses for this because there's 3 different ones.
Okay.
I hope you don't mind.
Okay.
All right. So there's 3 different types of certifications that a person can gain. And if you're really serious about getting a certification, my recommendation would be to look into all 3 of these and be able to make a decision on which one works for you. So the first certification is a CSM. That's a certified Scrum Master. The training requirements is a mandatory 2 days. The exam is 50 multiple choice questions. You get 60 minutes to take the exam, and it's an open book exam. You've got to make a 74 or better on the exam. You get 2 chances to take the exam within 90 days. And if for whatever reason you've got to take it a 3rd time, each retake that you take is $25. The certification is valid for 2 years. And then at the end of that 2 years, you can renew that certification for $100. And then they have 20 they're SEUs. They're basically trainings that you can take, and you have to do that every year after that second year. The second certification is an SSM. Again, their training requirements is a mandatory 2 days. And when I say mandatory 2 days, I'm referring to you have to take this class back to back. So you can't take it on a Monday and a Wednesday. You got to take this class Monday and Tuesday or Tuesday and Wednesday. So I kind of want to make sure that that's clear as well. For the SSM, you have 45 multiple choice questions. You're given 90 minutes to take this exam, and it's a closed book exam. You need to make a 73 or better to be considered passing. Now, on this particular exam, you get one attempt, and each retake is $50 per retake. This certification term is valid for a year. At the end of the year, you pay $100, and then they also have some continued education that you would take for that as well. The final certification type is a PSM. The training requirements, they're optional. Now, this one is, I would say, for someone who is aware of Scrum and aware of being a Scrum Master previously, because on this exam, it's 80 questions, 60 minutes, and it's a closed exam. The expectations are higher on this exam because the passing score is 85. And on the attempts for this one, it's $200 per attempt.
Okay.
So and
go ahead.
You get one free retake if you take the class. If you take a class, but there's not. I didn't get any information on the training requirement, what that looks like for a PSM. But your certification is for a lifetime.
Three different certifications that I'm hearing, and it sounds like all you need is a C average, and you pass the test.
I can't believe that's what you got out of
for
that.
People,
okay.
Look, there's hope for people like me. Okay, look, I'm just saying, C average. Okay, that's manageable. Okay, now, but the thing is that you gave us 3 different certifications. Mm-hmm. So I have to ask, is there one that's more advantageous than the other? I mean, if a person who wants to just get into this field for the first time, which certification are they supposed to take?
Let me say it like this. Out of the 3 certifications, I currently have 2. I have the CSM and the SSM. And when I first took the steps to become a Scrum Master, the first certification that I started out with was the CSM. It was a foundational course, and I really enjoyed it. It gave me the foundation that I needed. Now, the SSM was a little bit more elevated. And what I mean by elevation is that CSM is kind of the foundation to me as a Scrum Master. SSM is a notch up, because as a safe Scrum Master, the way in which you work is a little bit different than just a regular Scrum Master. And let me elaborate a little bit more. A CSM, a lot of times, is just a company saying, hey, I got a Scrum Master, you're working in this group. And what happens is you just kind of plan the work you're going to do. You work it in these 2-week iterations, and it just keeps going, right? But as a safe Scrum Master, you're working in a group with more than just one Scrum team. So it's more or less like you're working on a product, and it's a couple of Scrum teams working together, right? And so you plan together for a period of time for that work to be completed as well. So there's more work that goes into an SSM as a safe Scrum Master. And whenever you're applying for these positions, the role will tell you if they're looking for a CSM or an SSM certification.
Okay. So you're saying that there are going to be possible job descriptions that will list a particular type of certification.
Yes.
Okay. So I know we'll get into this a little later, but I do have to ask, depending on the certification, does that possibly put a person in a particular salary range? I mean, is one kind of considered more important or considered higher than the other? Because it sounds like it based upon some of what you indicated the requirements were to pass, other than a C average.
You're stuck on the C average. I will say this much: when I received my CSM, it immediately thrusted me into six figures.
Okay.
So
And that's just for the
CSM,
CSM.
SSM, it
Okay.
put me into six figures.
Okay. Okay. So as far as the prep time, talk about that. I mean, you obviously have to go through some sort of a preparation to prepare for this test, right? So what does that look like?
I will be honest with you. When I did my CSM, which was the first certification that I did, I took the 2-day course. It was on site. It was 2 full days. At the end of that class, that second day, I sat right there at the end and took my exam and passed it. So it is very likely that a person can walk into one of these classes or take this class virtually and be at the end when this class is done. If they're comfortable with the content that's been given, take that exam and pass.
Okay. Okay.
And I think I only missed 3 questions, so I did above a C.
Okay. Fair enough. You're smart. I got you. Okay. So let me ask you this. So for a person who might want to take the step, are there any available resources, books, courses that, communities for learning Scrum?
Depending upon how serious you are about it, what I found to be very helpful are meetup groups. So depending upon where you are, US wide, there are different meetup groups that come together and they talk about Scrum and they talk about Agile. And what that will do for an individual who has not been exposed to the framework to get more of an understanding. I like the meetups as well because the meetups that I attended, they would speak to who's hiring and who was there in the building that night for you to actually talk to about getting a job. So, if you're really curious about the role, first of all, I'm going to say go do it. Secondly is, go to the meetup groups if that's going to make you feel more comfortable. But depending upon which certification you go after and which organization you're with, I mean, it's something that you can do.
Okay. Okay. So when you look at the certifications, so let's just say someone's got a certification. And I'm speaking from experience now, because there are people who may have certifications, people who may have certain degrees in a particular field, and yet they may be certified in a particular discipline or whatever the case may be. But then for whatever reason, you learn and you find out they don't know jack. So I guess what I'm asking is that from your experience, what type of practical experience will help someone actually stand out? You got this pool of Scrum Masters. How does one, and I'm not saying I mean, obviously you do the work, but how does one stand out as, say, the master of Scrum Masters? How does one actually stand out from the rest? What does that entail? What does that look like?
So let me just get some clarification on your question. Are you referring to someone who's actually interviewing for the job opposed to someone who's actually doing the job?
Well, I'm just, yeah, I'm talking about once you've got the job, because I guess what I'm saying is a person invests money to get the certification with the helps of, escalating, in their career. They're wanting to go to new levels.
Okay. So
But what I'm saying is, so how does one stand out in the world of Scrum Master? Because based upon what you're telling me, there are principles, but surely there are some who are better at the job than others. I guess is what I'm saying is, and how does one stand out to be the so-called master of Scrum Master?
Okay, so if you want to come up with your own term as a master of Scrum Masters, then I would have to say that a master of Scrum Masters is a Scrum Master who can take a brand new team who does not have any experience with the framework and take that team from being brand new to a mature team. Now that's how you stand out as a Scrum Master. And what that means is that you teach that team not only the framework and the principles, but you cultivate an environment and foster an environment where that team runs harmoniously with or without you. Meaning that if you attend the stand up, great. If you don't attend the stand up, guess what? The impediments are being resolved. The team is moving the work through. And you, as a Scrum Master, are just sitting back and just monitoring and making sure that that team is effective. Now, that is the elite type of Scrum Master. When you have a mature team and you get your team to a mature state, it just makes your job so much easier.
Okay. So
Now, I know your next question
what's that?
is, how do you get a team to be mature?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. It was my next question, but by all means, go ahead and answer that for us, please.
To get a team, how I got teams to be mature is that I sat with each person over the course of a sprint, probably 15 minutes. I didn't want to take more than that because I needed my developer to be able to have time to code, and I needed my tester to have time to test. But I would take and carve out 15 minutes to see what that person needed as it relates to the framework to continue to grow. Another thing that I would do would be to allow each person to rotate at times, as far as facilitating any of the ceremonies, especially the daily stand-up. And then that way, what that would do is give that team the comfort of being able to facilitate a ceremony in my absence. So if I'm on vacation or if I'm out of office for whatever reason, now I have someone on the team or a choice of people on the team that I could go to be able to facilitate a meeting, whether I'm there or not.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier that you don't necessarily have to have an IT background to be a Scrum Master.
No.
So talk about career opportunities. What type of industries are hiring Scrum Masters right now?
Every industry that I can think of. And let me give you some examples.
Okay.
Scrum Masters are in the healthcare field. They are on the automotive side. I would say aviation, financial, mortgages. Just about everyone is looking at integrating and doing the agile transformation because it's just a smarter way to work.
Okay.
So for a person,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
So for a person who's becoming a Scrum Master, you're not tied to just the industry that you're currently in. Now the position that you have runs across various industries. So now your opportunity for work has just exploded because you're not just stuck on the aviation side. Now you can actually be a project manager. Now you can just be a Scrum Master on the mortgage side or the financial side, the banking side. You have choices.
Okay. So even though you may be a Scrum Master at a particular location that specializes in, say, finance, because of you being certified, you can literally say an opportunity comes up and say healthcare. And you can literally transfer from finance to healthcare. So basically, so what you're saying is Scrum Master is all set on the basis of principles.
Yeah,
that can be applied to pretty much any industry. Okay.
Because I've been a Scrum Master on the aviation side, right? On the aviation, and then I moved to mortgage.
Right.
You're talking apples to cars. It's not even apples to oranges. It's just something totally different, but it's doable. Okay. And the transition wasn't difficult for me because I still had to do a daily stand-up. I still had to do a retrospective, sprint planning, sprint review. All of that was still the same. The only thing that changed was the applications that the teams were using.
Okay. So we know now that a Scrum Master has the flexibility to pretty much go from they're not limited to a particular sector or discipline. They can pretty much go to pretty much any corporation in any particular industry. Okay.
Correct.
So even though that person may be the role of a Scrum Master, talk about the type of career opportunities in terms of career paths.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if you got a Scrum Master, you're a Scrum Master at a particular corporation. I mean, what can a person in that particular role look forward to, say, if they want to grow in that particular company? What
Within
other
that
opportunities can
organization,
that open up for that person?
well, I'm just going to say for the individual. Let me do it that way. I don't like to tie growth and development to an organization because it kind of boxes you out a little bit. I'm a firm believer that the individual is responsible for his or her professional growth and development.
Yeah,
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yep.
But for the individual who's a Scrum Master, your next automatic position should be a release train engineer, which is an RTE.
A RTE, a release train engineer.
An RTE.
That sounds technical.
It is not technical, believe it or not. An RTE, I enjoyed being an RTE because you had Scrum Masters that I'm not going to say reported to you, but you would have a meeting with the Scrum Masters on a regular basis just to make sure everything on the team was going well. So an RTE functions kind of like a Scrum Master, but at an elevated level. But with the RTE position, now you are in front of stakeholders, product owners, product managers, and you're having more in-depth conversations, and you're making sure the agile release train is running the way in which it needs to be. From there, once you obtain an RTE role and you do that particular role, now you can become an SPC, which now you're able to train.
What is an SPC?
A safe program consultant.
That sounds technical.
It's not technical. Well,
program.
It's not program. Well, the thing of it is, because I'm an SPC. So as an SPC, if you're looking to get a safe Scrum Master certification, I can actually teach it.
Okay. Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then organizations bring you in as an SPC to help them with their agile teams to make sure things run the way in which they're supposed to.
Gotcha. Okay. So what about roles, say in leadership or executive level opportunities? Can a certification or a person who works as a Scrum Master or RTE or SPC or PTA or ABC or whatever?
Wow. Okay.
Are there opportunities available? I mean, if they wanted to like really go big and go and say like, C-level or higher levels of leadership.
I've seen positions available for a VP of Agile transformation. So it's not as if you stop, right, at a Scrum Master or even at an RTE or an SPC level. I mean, your opportunities are what your opportunities are. It's just what's your motivation, what's your drive.
Okay.
What are your goals? And then you just fix your goals around the positions that are out there and go for it.
Okay. So let's talk about the money, because everybody, I'm sure, wants to know about the money.
Okay.
Earning potential. Okay. What is the typical salary? Typical salary range for a Scrum Master. Let's start like, say, entry level.
Okay.
And let's start like an entry level and even go up to, experience. What does that look like?
Well, I mean, you're going to start out within the 80s.
Within the 80s. Entry level.
Entry level.
Okay.
And you're going to go into the six figures. And the good part is that when you walk into this particular realm as a Scrum Master, open up your mind to various types of positions. Don't just look at full-time permanent positions. Look at contracting roles. A lot of people have a tendency to shy away from a contract role as a Scrum Master, but you still get benefits and things of that nature. But You're paid on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. You're still doing the role, but then you have flexibility to decide at the end of this contract, do I want to stay with this company or do I want to go somewhere else? So, when you decide to become a Scrum Master, look at both of your opportunities. Look at full-time positions with organizations, but also look at contracting through various contracting firms. But the money is there. I would say for someone who is unsure, or just first of all decides to, let me say it like this. For a new person, easy $80,000 a year. But in less than 24 months, you could be in the six-figure range.
Okay. So like, for instance, let's just say a college graduate who comes out with a 4-year degree. And let's just say the job search is a little slow. Maybe they're in a particular field. Maybe they got their degree in a particular discipline, and it may not necessarily be, they may not be getting the type of results that they are hoping for. And so you say, or make the suggestion to that person, go ahead and get you a Scrum Master certification. You're saying that they, provided that they take that step and decided to get that Scrum Master certification, because of the fact that they took the steps to do this, they very well could be looking at a job that's paying them in the $80,000 range, fresh out of college.
Fresh out of college. I'm looking at positions, and I looked yesterday because I knew we were going to have this conversation. And I looked yesterday online, and I saw positions paying $45 to $60 an hour for Scrum Masters. Now, what happens is, for someone who is new to being a Scrum Master, and if you have not worked before, or if you worked before, the importance of speaking to transferable skills during your interview is going to be important. Ensuring that whatever resume that you send out talks about and covers transferable skills and lists keywords for being a Scrum Master. Those are going to be the keys that unlock the door for you to proceed with other interviews with that company or that contracting firm.
Okay. Are there any other factors that go into play? Like, for instance, now I know you said a Scrum Master can pretty much work in any particular vertical or industry, but does the level of pay based upon the industry? Let's just say you say a Scrum Master doesn't necessarily need an IT background, but if a Scrum Master works for an IT company, is there reason to think that that person could possibly get more money working for an IT company?
From what I've seen in the research that I've done, a Scrum Master is paid pretty much the same across various industries.
Based upon experience, of course, relative experience. Okay.
The experience is what's going to increase the dollars for you.
Okay. All right. So we talked about earning potential. Okay. So we've talked about earning potential. Let's talk about keys to success. All right. What are some of the biggest challenges? And you can either speak from personal experience or just in general. What are some of the biggest challenges that a new Scrum Master might face?
Getting in the door.
Okay. So that's still a thing.
That's and what I mean by getting in the door is that's why I spoke to talking about enlisting your transferable skills, because your transferable skills along with the keywords is going to help you hopefully bypass some of these systems that you get this automatic decline from. Being able to do that. But then the next thing would be to speak confidently about, what you've learned, your skills, what you're able to offer, the organization. You have to speak to what they're asking you about from a Scrum perspective with confidence. Once they know that you know the material, they leave you alone. Let me give you an example. I've had, I don't know how many interviews when I was becoming a Scrum Master, to where I hesitated during the interview, and I could tell that I did. But the times in which I became more comfortable and I began to answer the interview questions a lot better, I was able to get the job a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
And that was me just talking about my experience, what I've done, what I'm able to offer. It went away. The questions, the interview questions went away from Scrum Master to just a whole nother topic. Once the person who I was interviewing with realized, oh, she understands, she knows, then it was over.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This may not necessarily apply, but there is this term imposter syndrome that comes up all the time. And I guess I'm old school. And based upon what I think I know about it, I know it's a psychological thing, but that's another subject for another day. But imposter syndrome apparently is a thing. How can someone overcome imposter syndrome if that is applicable in their particular case as it relates to starting off as a Scrum Master?
So when you say imposter syndrome, I want to make sure I have the right understanding
As
before
I understand it, imposter syndrome is someone who, in the greater scheme of things, is more than competent to do a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But internally, they may feel as if they don't necessarily, that people view them as being someone who doesn't necessarily have the level of competence to do a thing.
I got you. So to me, I don't call that imposter syndrome. I call that internal confidence.
Or lack thereof, huh?
Yeah, or the lack thereof. So for a person walking into a Scrum Master role, whether you have certification or not, know that you got the job over anyone else for a reason and a purpose. And walk into the job as if you own the place. If someone questions you on it, I've had people question me on it before, about the way in which things are going to work, and I had to go back and let them know that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Mm-hmm. And I've even had to go back and say, based upon the material that I've read, this is where this is your role. This is my role. Mm-hmm. And be able to give them that feedback back. And that's where that communication piece comes back in, as we talked about before, being able to communicate to that person regardless of their position. I mean, you may have to have, as a Scrum Master, you may have to have this conversation with a product owner. You may have to have a conversation like this with a stakeholder. You may even have to have the conversation with the CEO, just depending upon how where the conversation goes. But if you are right and you know that you are right, stand 10 toes down, be polished in your answer, but deliver the message.
Okay, so we talked about the challenges that a Scrum Master might face, and those are challenges, but I don't want to necessarily confuse them with mistakes. What type of mistakes do you typically see Scrum Masters make that they probably shouldn't?
Not stepping in to police a daily stand-up. And let me elaborate on that.
Yeah, please. See.
So just say, for example, you're given 15 minutes to get the team together and to go around the room like I talked about, go around the circle or however you guys are doing it and talk about what you did yesterday, what you're doing today, if there's any impediments. You have 15 minutes to do that. So if you've got someone and you're going around and Jack has said, he coded yesterday, he'll be done today, he'll be ready to pick up another story, he doesn't have any impediments, that's perfect. Mm-hmm. You may have Mary, who will say, yeah, I coded, but I got to a point where I had to stop because I'm seeing that the code touched Kenn's team and I need to talk to Kenn, and I've reached out to him a couple of times, but I can't get him. Dionne, can you help me get in contact with Kenn so we can kind of work this out? I have an impediment. Gotcha. That's perfect. But where the problem comes in is where Jill, and I hope there's no Jills watching, and if it is, I'm sorry, Jill. But, you get to Jill, and Jill's talking about how her dog got out yesterday, how her kid didn't bring home his homework, how the teacher's calling you and you may have to leave. And she's talking about everything except for the work. And the mistake that I've seen with Scrum Masters is allowing Jill to continue that conversation when that has nothing to do with the stand-up, and we've got 15 minutes to do this. The way in which the Scrum Master should correct that mistake would be to say, you know what, Jill, I hear everything that's going on, and I know that you've got a lot going on behind the scenes. Can you just briefly tell us what you did yesterday, what you're going to work on today, and if you have any impediments as it relates to the work that's been assigned to you? And then we'll come back to, everything else with you later.
Okay.
Putting them back on track. So that's the largest mistake that I've seen Scrum Masters make, is because they don't feel as if they have the authority to stop the conversation. But you're a leader just like anyone else in the organization. You just have to be polished in the way in which you get them to stop.
So in other words, stay focused and stay in control.
Stay focused and stay in control.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So let me ask you this, because you mentioned 3 different certifications, and obviously it's key for at least to get started. Obviously you have to have one, but I'm guessing, as you indicated, you've got more than one. And I'm guessing there is some additional benefit to having more than just one. Talk about the benefit of that, and how can someone keep growing by adding additional certifications in the area of Scrum?
Well, I mean, like I said, when I started out with my CSM, it thrusted me into 6 figures, right? And then I got my Safe Scrum Master certification. And that just opened up even more doors, because now I'm dealing with a totally different level of, or was dealing with a totally different level of Scrum teams and the way in which the framework was ran. Now, moving from that to an SBC, I mean, just elevates it even more. So, having multiple certifications just continues to grow you. Now, I know some people will look at the cost of certification sometimes and shy away, but I say, first of all, invest in you, whatever that cost may be, because you are ultimately the leader and the controller of your professional growth and development. But secondly, also look and see if the organization would pay for you to obtain a certification. I mean, most companies do. Leverage your organization. Allow them to help you get your certification and continue to grow.
Well, okay, now you speak my language. The key word is investing in yourself, or the key phrase is investing in yourself. And so, if I understood you correctly, with all of these, the 3 types of certifications that you mentioned, CSM, RTE,
Yes.
SPC, right?
Yes. That's what I have.
Yes. Okay. You got all of them?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. I knew that. But anyway, okay. But the reason why I asked that question is because you said, now, if I'm not mistaken, the SPC puts you in a unique position to do what again?
It allows me to teach.
Teach what?
So if someone's looking for a Safe Scrum Master certification, I can hold a class and teach.
You can hold a class.
Teach the content. I can teach the content. I have taught the content.
Yeah.
For people to get their certification.
So you can teach people who want to be Scrum Masters how to be Scrum Masters.
That I can.
Okay. All right. Final question. You've been a wonderful, wonderful guest, by the way.
Thank you.
If you've provided an awful lot of information, okay. But if you could give one solid piece of advice to someone who may be on the fence, someone who says, you know what, I see people being Scrum Masters, I see what they're doing, and yeah, but it's expensive, and I don't know if I have the money to do it. I mean, but it may not necessarily be about the money, but for someone who just simply may be on the fence, contemplating whether or not this is something they should do, what would be that one piece of advice that you would give?
My advice is coming from Nike, and it's just do it. And I say just do it because you have to invest in you. No one's going to invest in you but you. And I've heard someone else say, Ken, you're going to know where I'm getting this from. If you don't pay, you don't pay attention.
That's true.
And I'll be honest, I thought deeply about paying for my certification, and let me just be transparent.
Please.
When I obtained my very first certification, I got a CSM. That CSM certification cost me $2,000. But that CSM $2,000 course thrusted me into a $100,000 position plus. So I think my return on investment was pretty good. I haven't done the math and the percentages, but I think that was a pretty good percentage. So, if you're really thinking about it and you really want to grow and you really want to develop, don't allow anyone around you or even yourself to stop you from growing. Take the chance on you and do it.
Okay. So, this platform is about entrepreneurship. I'm an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur. But the thing about the CSM kind of sticks out to me. And I just want to make sure that I want to clarify. You're saying that there are no prerequisites other than obviously you need a certification. But of the 3 certifications that you mentioned previously, the CSM, the RTE, and the SPC, you don't necessarily need a CSM or an RTE in order to get a CSM, an XYZ, right?
A QMX, DMX.
Okay.
Let me just.
In other words, you one isn't necessarily a prerequisite for the other, correct?
I would. My personal and professional opinion would be, if you're going to get up to an SPC, then you need to have. If you're going up to an SPC, or you're looking at high tier leadership within the agile space, my recommendation is to be able to get one of the 3 that we talked about: CSM, SSM, or PSM, and then get an RTE certification and then a SPC certification. So, take the steps to get the certifications and leverage. If you don't want to pay out of pocket, leverage your organization. But if you can't leverage your organization, I'm telling you up front, it's worth the investment in yourself.
Okay. So finally, let people know where they can find you if they want to invest in themselves and take the route on becoming a Scrum Master.
On the route of becoming a Scrum Master, you can reach out. There's DionneRashad.com. There's a plethora of products that are out there. I made sure that I took time to write and create and provide answers to interview questions that could potentially be asked, whether they're technical or not.
You know what? And I'm sorry to cut you out. You brought that up because I remember when you were working on that project. This is really, from the sounds of it, becoming a Scrum Master or a CSM or whatever the case may be. To me, it sounds as if it's just it's a job interview, but you're like really into the fact that there are like some very specific questions that they're going to ask you as it relates to that particular, and there's kind of like a unique way to answer it, if I'm not mistaken.
There are. And the reason being, I've interviewed people for Scrum Master jobs, and I've hired Scrum Masters before. So I know what questions that were being asked and the answers that I was looking for, because the way in which you answered the question indicated to me whether you were going to be able to do the job or not.
Okay. All right.
So there is a way in which you answer these questions to know that you get the job. So there's a guide out there for interviews. There's guides out there for resumes, whether it's a Scrum Master position or a release train engineer position. Mm-hmm.
And then finally, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, because I'm saying. I was
just going to say that. It's just it's a list of products out there. Everything that I talked about as it relates to the variety of Scrum Master certifications. There's, if you need a flyer for that, that's out there. and then of course, the final pieces have been placed on the Agile Career Academy. So, it's just a variety of things in the classes that I'll be teaching month over month. I mean, all of that's out there at DionneRashad.com.
Okay. And then you said the Agile Career Academy, which you've worked quite a bit on. Explain that before we go. What is the Agile Career Academy?
I'm going to call the Agile Career Academy the coolest thing that I've ever done. And I say that because it's a 5-week program. The first week, we do the sit down and do the 2 days and get you your certification. Week 2 through week 5 have programs that are dedicated each week. We're going over your resume. We're making sure that you have the keywords that are listed. We make sure that you have transferable skills that are listed on your resume. We conduct mock interviews. It's easy to get the document and read the document, but it's a whole nother thing to sit down and say, now I have this certification. How do I explain it to the person on the phone that I know what I'm doing so that I can get this 6-figure job? So what I have found is that going over these questions and practicing the answers helps you even more to get the job a lot faster. During the academy, we also have simulations. And what I mean by simulations is that I take you in the day in the life of a Scrum Master. You're doing daily stand-ups. You're doing sprint planning. You're doing retrospectives. You're doing a variety of ceremonies. You're working in the systems that a Scrum Master is going to work in. So when you're on an interview and they're asking you, can you tell me a little bit about Jira? Guess what? Now you have the experience. Now you know how to go into Jira. You know how to create a story. Now you know how to add story points. You know how to assign the story to someone. Those are just some of the daily tasks that are also responsible for a Scrum Master to be able to do. And then the last week of the Agile Career Academy, I open that last week up to answer any questions or concerns that you may have. And then we go from there. Off to your new job.
So, of course, for anyone who is in need of my wife's services, Dionne Rashad, you can click on the link in the description with all of the details as to her services and products that she's offering. So you can go to DionneRashad.com. You can visit her corporate website at KDMJ But like I said, all of the details are in the description field. And even if you are willing to or would like to even schedule are you open for consultations? You're just taking appointments?
I do have an opportunity for people to schedule. It's a 15-minute consultation. If it's a corporate entity that's looking for something a little bit more than just, talking about certifications and maybe agile transformations, I have something in there specifically targeted toward businesses as well.
Okay. There you have it. So until next time, I'm Kenn Rashad. She's Dionne Rashad, my lovely wife. Again, thank you for joining us on the podcast, and we will see you next time. God bless you.